CBC is hemoglobin, white cells and platelets, all three, plus the differential, plus whatever additional indices you can give for this CBC sample. Okay, and if any pathologist here, please pardon me, but if any pathologist here is going to give a report saying platelets are adequate, that is completely inadequate, you have to give a number. And I have told my clinical colleagues that you have to get a CBC report with the platelet, because CBC is a complete blood count, platelets are included. Please do not do any stepmotherly treatment to it. Give that platelet count, whatever way that count, right or wrong, but give that count. We need to have that count for future references and for back. One of our very famous actresses' father was admitted in one of the hospitals for a hernia surgery 5 days ago. Platelet count was found to be low. Surgeon said, I am not going to operate unless we get hematology clearance. So when I saw the smear, nice large platelets, comes from northeast, nice large platelet, and we did a manual platelet count, 154,000. I said, go ahead with surgery. Surgery was done. So it's very important for us to see all numbers, see the slides, and then give an answer so that we can get on with certain surgical procedures. We did a look back, and you'll be shocked if from some of the reports in another city that platelets are written as adequate or platelets are written as 210,000, and one place it was 78,000. It's just so unfair to that patient who was paid money to get a report. So please see that when you write about platelets, don't write adequate. You might say the smear on smear it looks adequate, but give the number, please. If you see from a hematologist viewpoint, a CBC to us is a combination of things. While you've got a quantity of hemoglobin, you've got a quality which comes through the indices. So it is a non-chromic normocytic anemia, macrocytic anemia, hypochromic microcytic anemia. So this tells you the quality to this quantity. This is again a quantity, this tells you the quality. Neutrophilic leukocytosis or a lymphocytic leukocytosis. So I think this and this is like an adjective to this. It tells you the quality of it. And makes a lot of difference to us during the time of discussion and with the patient especially, and further therapy and further investigation. Unfortunately for platelet count, there is no kind of a quality other than the mean platelet volume. But the larger the mean platelet volume, more is hemostatically active your platelet. So if I have an acute ITP or a dengue fever which is going on now, and the MPV is say 10 or 12, it's on the higher side, I don't give platelets unless they are bleeding. So I go by the MPV. Is there a reference? I don't think so. But I go by the clinical side and I go by the MPV. I go by the smear. I have the advantage of seeing the smear. And I said, look, don't expose these people to platelets, because you never know what is going to happen. HIV, hepatitis B, hepatitis C, it's really unfair. So don't take that risk. So by looking at MPV, sometimes I have been able, and clinical picture of course, I have been able to say no, don't do it. But if the mean platelet volume is going to be low, 5.46, I am going to be constantly worried. Am I dealing with a person who might bleed suddenly into the brain? That becomes difficult. Then I would give platelets in that case. So the only way I can look at platelet counts quality is by looking at mean platelet volume. Otherwise, really, there's nothing else. There are no indices as such. We all know that Quarter principle involves one cell going through in a single linear fashion with the help of a sheath fluid, one by one, where it is interrogated by a laser. And when the laser hits the cell as it is going through one by one, it releases out, it gives out some data. Now, there's something called as a forward scatter, where there's a sensor which picks up how much light is scattered in a forward manner, and there's something which goes in a side scatter, side manner. Now, this is based on how complex and large your cell is. The smaller the cell, there's going to be more forward scatter. The larger the cell, there's going to be less forward scatter. The more complex the cell, there's going to be more side scatter. So based on the volume and complexity of the cytoplasm, the machine is going to give you, is going to be able to pick it up through sensors and collect that data and put it into a different perspective called as a scattergram. The hemoglobin is picked up, of course, by a simple Sahali-like method, which you are doing by naked eye, now it is done by a machine. Obviously, the more amount of hemoglobin, less light will go. The less amount of hemoglobin, more light will go. Accordingly, there is a calculation for that. We can get a hemoglobin value directly. Let me tell you, hemoglobin is the most stable value that we will get from a machine. So if you have got 5 laboratories next to each other and we send you a sample, most likely the hemoglobins are likely to be very stable. The Colter is an excellent machine for indices. I still feel that it is one of the good machines for indices. WBCs and platelets will vary depending on what is the ability of the machine, what VCS program it has to be able to pick up accurately the differential. Platelets, of course, is a problem in most of the instruments. I used to use what was called as H1 Technipa. I think bought over by Bayer and now Advia. So they used to look at platelets in a different manner. Just look at almost like a 3D and give a much better answer. So there are machines which can give you better looks at different cells, depending upon what they use as their technology. This is what is the Kotter principle as the RBC goes through. You all saw that. I hope you want I can show it to you once again. As soon as it goes through, you get an oscilloscope finding over here, and that the RBC or whatever cell goes through, it gives out an oscilloscope beep, which is then measured by the computer. Similar for the white cells, as it goes through, it gives a forward scatter and a side scatter, which is picked up by the sensor, and so the number is also counted, and the complexity and cell size is simultaneously counted. That's how we get a differential. This is a situation where RBCs and cells are going through the aperture as per Kotter principle. So what if these cells hang around, waiting for the friends to come through? And they start accumulating here and they start getting recounted. How do you know that the machine is not recounted in the same RBC? So the machine has a very interesting concept called sweep flow, where there is a diluent stream which goes through. You can see that the RBC is too slow. That the RBC is through a diluent stream get pushed upwards in one line, and therefore they will not be recounted. This is just another look at it. RBCs there's a diluent stream. You see that the RBCs don't hang around and they keep moving one by one upwards. And sometimes if there are two RBCs coming in, you'll get a double pulse, which of course will be deleted. The machine knows how to delete that. And of course, if there are more than two RBCs, again you get that kind of thing. Now, based on what has gone through and the size of the particle that has gone through the aperture, the machine has been programmed to tell you that between 2 and 20 femtoliters will be a platelet. So any damn particle going through in that is counted as a platelet. So anything between 2 and 20 femtoliters will be a platelet. Anything above that will be considered to be an RBC. So RBC will be considered somewhere between 50 to about 200 femtoliters. That's the RBC range. Okay. Now based on that, the machine is going to count the number of events of RBCs and platelets and give you a number at the end. So what you get is this brilliant graph, which we all are familiar with. You get a scatter plot or a scattergram, where based on volume and complexity, you will get a differential. It is so good today that if you get a printout and you're given the printout and I see it's all normal, I would not even look at the slide. Why? I don't want my eyes to get fatigued. I don't want my technicians' eyes to get fatigued. I'd rather that they spend time on CBC reports which have got a flag on it, so that they can spend more time. You're just seeing normal. That's good for juniors. The junior technician should be given all these slides, so let them get used to what is normal, so that they can appreciate what is abnormal. So you get lymphocytes, you get monocytes, you get neutrophils, you get eosinophils, because based on the complexity. And of course you get a graph for RBC which goes from 50 to 200 femtoliters. And if you can see this graph here, we bring it down here, usually the mean corpuscular volume, MCV, is about 88, 90. In this case it is 91. That's because if you take it from here to up, that's what you will get as mean corpuscular volume. And you've got always a graph which is the machine's curve, and the platelets of the patient are fit to that curve. You get a platelet count, in which case it is 292. And if you notice that it is going from 2 to 20 femtoliters, that's the way the machine is counted out of platelets. So there are some beyond this, the machine may not be accurate enough to count even to a manual. So if you've got more cells in this area, you might be looking at eosinophilia. You can pick out straight from the smear. You've got some cells over here between the monocytes and the neutrophils. You know that these are going to be myeloblasts. And you look at the smear and you pick up myeloblasts. And if there are going to be more in this area, you know that there are going to be lymphoblasts or reactive lymphocytes. So you're looking at a lymphoid-related problem. At the end of the day, with the CBC, you're going to have following three things in front of you. You're going to have a unicytopenia, one cell line is two. A bicytopenia where two cell lines are there, or a pancytopenia where all three cell lines are there. The aggression, investigations, everything changes based on what that CBC is going to show. And for this, therefore, I need to know whether it's a quality control laboratory giving me a quality control answer. The commonest problem which we face is anemia, which you all will face is anemia. And today's fever and all thrombocytopenia. That's why I selected these two topics. You know that anemia is tired blood, where there's quantitative and qualitative reduction in the amount of hemoglobin in RBC. We must know what is the normal range for the hemoglobin for a male. It is 13.5 or 14 to 17.5 and 18. For a female, it's anywhere between 11.5 and 15.5 or 12 to 16. Issue is, when I spoke at Akola, it was a very good question. We have a question as to who has said this is normal. How do you know this is normal? This is Western level. We don't have EU data. And I was very impressed with one doctor, whose name I must take, Dr. Prajul Garge. And he is a pathologist. He was very impressive. He said that, look, how do we know what is considered to be as normal? Then we made inquiries and we found out that ICMR is in the process of setting up normal standards for Indian population. Because please remember, it is a lot of implications for insurance purposes and for investigations, costing, everything. It makes a lot of difference. Our hemoglobin is genuinely lesser than the West. We don't believe that actually. We believe that we are similar to what the West is. It's just that our gut is dirty. We kind of crack food, which make our gut very dirty, and therefore obviously the hemoglobin is slightly lesser. That's what many gastroenterologists feel, but we as hematologists feel that why should we be different from them? We know the other incidents of all other diseases are similar. So why can't our CBCs be similar? So that's why we still stuck to the Western standard. But I'm hoping that once we get more Indian data, we'll be able to handle it. One of the important things of anemia that we are worried about is something sinister. Vista the sinister. Sometimes we feel that there is something more. And one of the examples of this is, of course, underlying malignancies, which I'm going to come to in my second talk. So please remember this diagram because it might be a simple iron deficiency anemia, but in the patient that I'm going to discuss with you, just see what turned out instead of that. In our clinical practices, for clinicians, there's a common causes for anemia that you see over here. Commonest is iron deficiency, vitamin deficiency. You will be appalled at the amount of deficiency as a cause of anemia. And you will be appalled at